Hi everyone, my name is Yashwant and today I'm going to discuss about two topics, RSA algorithm and virus. RSA algorithm is used by modern computers to encrypt and decrypt messages as it is an asymmetric cryptographic algorithm where there are two different keys are used in this particular algorithm, and this algorithm is also called as public key cryptography because one of the keys can be given to anyone. The keys can be made public. so uh, RSA algorithm, how it got RSA name. So RSA is developed by Ron Rivest, Adi Shamir, and Leonard Adleman. To honor their hard work, RSA has been given, this algorithm has been given their last names. So RSA, as I've said before, RSA is an asymmetric cryptographic algorithm where public key concepts and private key concepts are used. Let me discuss about what is cryptography. So crypto means something secret, and graphy means it's a language or it's a script. So cryptography means writing something uh, uh, in non-understandable form, so that the persons you can choose only read it with a secret key. Uh, so uh, that is all about cryptography, and let me discuss about symmetric key and let me discuss about symmetric key cryptography. So encryption, plain text is converted into ciphertext using a secret key. Decryption, ciphertext is converted into a plain text using the same secret key. So here is an example. Symmetric encryption is a type of encryption where only one key, which is a secret key, is used to both encrypt and decrypt electronic information. So here, as you can see, uh, sender has a plain text and he wanted to send it to receiver. So he will encrypt the particular plain text using symmetric key or secret key. When user wants to this particular ciphertext to see the original message, he will use that same secret key which has been shared to the receiver by sender. He will use that particular a symmetric key to decrypt this algorithm. So, by using symmetric encryption algorithms, data is converted to a form that cannot be understood by anyone who does not possess the secret key to decrypt it. So, once this intended recipient who possesses that particular key has the message, the algorithm reverses its action so that the message is returned to its original format and in an understandable form. The secret key is the sender and recipient both could use a specific password. It means both the secret key and the sender and recipient use the specific password code or a random string of letters or numbers that have been generated by a random number generator. So example, let me tell an example. Here there is a plain text, love you granny. So this plain text is getting converted into ciphertext using this private key, this secret key. Sorry, not private key, secret key, which is shared by both sender and receiver. So here, plain text is converted into ciphertext using an encryption algorithm. To decrypt that algorithm, sender will be receiver will be using a particular secret key to decrypt that algorithm, and he will see that sender has said "I love you, Granny." So let me talk about asymmetric key cryptography. So this asymmetric key cryptography is also called as public key cryptography, and it uses pairs of keys. So the first one is public key. Public key is which is something which may be distributed widely. Uh, they are uploaded in many directories as well in internet, and private key which are known only to the user. User must not share to anyone his private key. Otherwise, their data will be breached or attacked by someone. So the generation of such keys depends on cryptographic algorithms based on mathematical problems to produce one-way functions. So here we are using RS algorithm to prove it. Effective security only requires keeping the private key private. So the public key can be openly distributed without compromising security. And let me discuss, just I want to make sure whether it's recording or yes. So let me discuss an example. So Alice has a sender and Bob has a receiver. Alice sends a message to Bob. So here Alice encrypts that particular message using Bob's public key. Here what Bob will do is Bob will decrypt the message using his own private key. So here in this case, what's happening is in general, when someone uses others public key to encrypt something, only that particular person alone can be able to decrypt it with his own private key. So here that's what Bob is doing. So let me discuss it with an example. So here Bob wants to say hello Alice to Alice. So Bob will encrypt this particular text using Alice's public key. So what he'll do is he'll use Alice's public key, and what Alice will do is Alice will use her own private key to decrypt this particular message in order to see the hello Alice. So authentication is the main part in this RSA algorithm, as senders uses the receiver's public key to encrypt the message. Receiver uses his own private key to decrypt the particular message. So let me discuss about RSA algorithm. So these are all the things that we need to know in order to proceed with RSA algorithm. So the basic steps that are involved in this algorithm are key generation. Key generation is the first basic step in RSA algorithm. We use RSA concept in order to maintain high confidentiality. That is our main goal. Nowadays, everyone are using this RSA, and it's a most important algorithm. So in step one, we have to select large prime numbers P and Q, and this security of the security of this RSA algorithm is based on the selection of larger numbers. It means if we select larger numbers, then the security and no one can able to crack that public key, private key especially. So here in the second step, we have to calculate n value, which is n equals to p into q. And then we have to calculate psi of n. Psi of n value is p minus 1 into q minus 1. It is also called as Euler's torsion function. So in here we have to choose the value of e, where there are some conditions. E is the public key here. So the public key must lie between 1 and psi of n value, and the GCD of e comma psi of n must be 1. It means they must be co-prime. There will be a single common factor between them, then only they can be called as co-prime. So step 5, calculating D. So here also there are two steps. In the first step, D, the formula is to calculate D mod psi of n equals to 1. So here in this case, we can do this by substituting. We can do this by using substituting the value of D, or it means, so here we have to, for example, if D equals to 1, then this if this particular calculation satisfies this given criteria, right side equals to left side, then D will be 1. It will be like that. So here in this case, another method is using Euler's theorem. So here formula is D equals to E inverse mod psi of n. I'll discuss with this when a problem is given. So here public key is E comma n. private key is d comma n, where E is public key, D is private key, and n is the value that we have calculated, multiplying the both prime numbers. In this encryption, we have to calculate C equal to m power E mod n, where C is the ciphertext and m is the number of characters in plain text in the particular plain text, and this value of m must less than n, must be less than n. So here decryption. So in this decryption, we have to calculate the value of m, where m equals to C power D mod n. C is the ciphertext and D is the public private key of the. As we have calculated D, we can put the value of D here in the problem. So we can calculate this decryption, the message size. So let me tell you in an easy way. So here there will be plain text which is an ASCII code. So sender will use receiver's public key in order to encrypt the particular file, and he will encrypt that through RSA encipher, and it will travel through this communication channel, this ciphertext. So when it comes to the receiver, what receiver will do in order to get that plain text which has been sent by the user, what he will do is he will use his own private key, as sender uses receiver's public key. Receiver will use his own private key to decrypt the target. Target is ciphertext. So by that he can convert using a cipher this private key. He can convert this ciphertext into plain text. So here, what is m is the size of this particular ASCII code or plain text. So here, before the encryption and after the decryption, this m must match. Otherwise, there is some error in our algorithm, and we have to go through this again. We have to check for some errors. So in a simple way, we can say RSA. So we have to select P comma Q, where P and Q both are prime. So then we have to calculate n, and again we have to calculate n is equals to both the multiplication of P and Q. We have to calculate psi of n, and then we have to select an integer E where there are two conditions, and then calculate D. D is the actually E is the private public key, and D is the private key. So public key will be E comma n, private key will be D comma n, and encryption and decryption as follows. So now let me take some examples to explain RSA algorithm in a better way. So RSA algorithm, let me tell you some points. It is one of the most common public key algorithm. It uses black cipher scheme. The typical size of n is 1024 bits and 1024 bits and 309 decimal digits. It makes use of expressions with exponents, and it has, as we have seen, key generation, encryption, and decryption. So here in this question, I'm going to explain. I'm going to read the question. Alice wants to send a message. Value, like the size of the message is 88, and the number of text words or the letters in this message is 88, and he wants to send this particular message to Bob. So here, let me take step by step key generation. Key generation is the first step in RSA algorithm in order to maintain confidentiality. So we have to select, in order to maintain confidentiality, we have to, the first step is select large prime numbers P and Q, where I have selected P as 11 and Q as P as 17 and Q as 11. So we have to calculate value of n. Value of n equals to P into Q. We can substitute these PQ values here, and we'll get n as 187. So we have to calculate psi of n. Psi of n value is P minus 1 into Q minus 1. When we substitute all these P minus 1 and Q minus 1 values, we'll get psi of n as 160. Now we have to choose the value of E. So I took value of E equals to 7 as it's a prime number. It's generally we choose every value of public key as a prime number, as it doesn't have more than 2 factors. So there is a condition where the public key must be lies between it must lie between 1 and psi of n value. So as psi of n is 160 and 7 is greater than 1, this value this condition satisfies. And even in GCD, that condition is GCD of psi of n comma e must be 1. So as you can see here, 160 can be written as in its cofactors 160 into 1, and 7 can be written as 7 into 1. As you can see here, there are only one most common factor. So we can say these conditions are satisfied, and we can proceed further. Now we can calculate, we have to calculate D, and it will be done in 2 ways. By substitution method. This is a long method, but it will be effective sometimes when we have to do it. It will be very very tough to do it, because we have to substitute all those values. So the formula is ED mod psi of n equals to 1. So in this particular formula, we know public key and psi of n. So we have to find the value of D by substitution method. So if we put D equals to 1, then 7 into 1 mod 160, which is not equals to 1. So like that, if we have to put D equals to 2, 14 mod 160, which is also again not equals to 1. So like this, if we keep on substituting, at some point it will match with 23, D equals to 23, where it satisfies 7 into 23 mod 160, which is 1. So D will be 23. Other way to do it is using Euler's theorem. So the formula for Euler's theorem and using the formulas for the Euler's theorem, we'll get again we are defining this from we are sending it e to the other side. So D equals to E inverse mod psi of n, which is 7 inverse mod 160. So using Euler's theorem, multiplying on both sides with 7 power 160, we will get we will get we will get where is that? We'll get 23. D power D equals to 7 power 159 mod 160, which is 23. So it will be D will be 23 again. So either way we'll get the same answer. So the public key will be E comma N, which is 7. Private key will be D comma N, which is 23, and 187 is the calculated multiplied P and Q values. So the encryption. In encryption, Alice encrypts the particular message using Bob's public key. So as I have told before, this is the C is the ciphertext and M is the message in the question. So by E is the public key. So by putting all those values in this equation, we'll get ciphertext as 11. So the size of the ciphertext is 11. So by using this decryption, in this decryption, Bob decrypts message using his own private key. So here Bob is trying to find the original size of the message to find whether it's a match or not. So it is equals to ciphertext power private key mod n. So if we substitute all these values, we'll get the value as 88. As you can see, m value is 88 in this question. So this is satisfied. So this original message size, this is the original message size, m equals to 28 in the given question. So this answer is verified. So Bob will use his own, Alice will use yes. So as you can see here, Bob decrypts message using his own private key. Alice decrypts message using her own private key. So here in this case, this is verified. So here, this example will clear all your doubts. So in this case, Yashwant wants to send message m equals to 19 to Nandakishore. So in this key encryption, the first process is key encryption. We have to select two large prime numbers, where p equals to 7 and q equals to 17. I have chosen, and we have to calculate n value. N value will be 119 and psi of n will be 96. So here I took e as 5. By saying this, we can say these are co-prime. GCD of 96, 5 is co-prime, and the value of public key lies between this psi of n value and 1. So this both conditions are satisfied. Now we have to find d, the substitution method, de mod psi of n equals to 1, where we have to substitute all these public key values, and we have to keep on substituting 1, 2, 3, 4 like that until we get d equals to 77. This above equation will be satisfied. So another method to find d. So d equals to e inverse mod psi of n. Using Euler's theorem, we can find d also, and which is also 77. In where d is also 77. So I'm pretty sure that we have to use both these methods for verification. So private key will be e comma n, which is 5 comma 119. Private key will be d comma n, which is 77 comma 119. So encryption, Yashwant uses Nandakishore's public key. See here, Yashwant uses Nandakishore's public key to encrypt the particular message. So here C is the ciphertext and M is the message given in this question, which is 19 power 5. 5 is the public key, and mod 119 is the psi of n. So we'll get ciphertext size is 66. In this decryption process, Nandakishore uses his own private key to decrypt the message, as Yashwant used Nandakishore's public key. I think you got it now. So m equals to c power d mod n. So by substituting all these values as ciphertext and private key, we will get m equals to 19, hence proved. As you can see in this question, the given value of m is 19. So here I'm pretty sure that Nandakishore will use his own private key, where the private key value is 77. He used 77 as a private key to decrypt the message which has been sent by Yashwant. So yeah, that's it. And thank you. We have a lot of users for this particular RSA algorithm. So this RSA algorithm is pretty important. Yeah, that's it. And now I'm going to go to this second topic called as virus. Let me discuss about virus with you. So just a second. Yeah. So before telling what is a virus, I just wanted to say that virus is a very, very, very malicious program. So it can come into your computer, and it will destroy all your programs, and it might destroy everything that you possess. So virus is a malicious program, and it will be able to inject its code into other programs or applications or data files, and the targeted areas becomes infected. So the installation of virus is done without user's consent, and it spreads from executable code and transfers from one host to another. For this, I wanted to say an example. So let's assume your computer or your laptop is under virus attack. So it will be multiplying millions of copies of files in not millions. It will be multiplying the copies of files in into thousands. So when you insert a particular pen drive, the virus will and you copy those files, those infected files, the virus will be gone into that particular pen drive. So when others uses that particular pen drive, that virus will go into their computer and it will destroy their laptops. So you have to be very careful, and you have to eject and you have to uh, detect all those problems. You have to eject your pen drive in order to reduce this problem. But most sure, I'm sure that uh, the pen drives which are having viruses, they are not useful after that. So threats to information assets. So what is a risk? So risk is a potential threat, and the process of understanding and responding to factors that may lead to a failure in confidentiality, integrity, and availability. These are CIA concepts. So what is confidentiality? Let me take an example: Instagram or Facebook. So what Instagram does or what Facebook does? uh, Facebook maintains authentication. It means the particular person, it maintains confidentiality of users data. It will not share the users data with any other persons but user himself. So it is about confidentiality. Integrity in the sense, it will be able to maintain that particular data within themselves, and it will be able to protect the data against all these attacks that are going now. Availability of data. So for example, yeah, let's take Snapchat or sorry, yeah, let's take Snapchat or in Snapchat there'll be a username and a password where you'll be you will have control over them because you have created them. So availability. So Snapchat must be able to make available for the users with correct identities. So these CIA of as an information system, they constitute risk management. The key concerns in information assets security are theft. Someone may be stealing your passwords, fraud or forgery. Uh, Unauthorized information access, and interception or modification of the data and data management systems. So vulnerability. So what is a vulnerability? Vulnerability. Vulnerability is a weakness in design, in the implementation or in operation or internal controls. So, for example, unpatched systems, a lack of antivirus software, weak passwords, unlocked doors, all these are the examples. So, signs that your computer is infected. Functions slower than normal. So, when you are opening a file or when you are closing a file, it will take longer than at the normal time. It responds slowly and your screen freezes often. The laptop or computer, it will restart on its own. You may see some uncommon error messages, distorted menus, and dialog boxes. Notice applications fail to work. You may notice applications may fail to work correctly, and we're not able to print correctly. So these are all the indications that your computer is under attack. So what do viruses do? Viruses can damage files. Viruses can slow systems. Viruses can show messages and some pop-up boxes and some. So when I don't know whether you have noticed or not, when you see some malicious sites that you don't know, automatically some type of virus droppers will be there over there, and it will drop some viruses. So what these viruses will do is they will able to uh, 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 they are the responsible for this pop-up messages, and mostly a virus stays longer than a period of time. It may take control of your system too. So introduction to computer virus. Almost every user in this world who possesses a laptop or a Even phones are also getting viruses today. So almost every user has faced virus attack and loses some sort of computer resources. So computer virus is not a biological element like coronavirus, which which is a pretty big virus and it's killing a lot of people. And it's not, this virus is not like that. It's a computer program. So virus definition and name. So a virus is a program that. So let me discuss about virus in detail. Virus is a program that reproduces its own code by attaching itself to other executable files like doc files or PPT files, and in such a way that the virus code is executed when those particular infected documents are that particular file which has been infected is executed. Virus must they must do this without the permission of the user. If user may find it, he'll be trying to run some anti software tests. So it will do on its own without user's permission. So friend Cohen. So friend Cohen, for the first time, he defined the computer virus. At first, everyone thought that he was crazy or something, but later they realized that this computer virus may cause a lot of data integrity and data breaches will happen. So they have acknowledged him. In 1983, there was he was a doctoral candidate at University of Southern California. So without his name and without his name, discussion of virus must be incomplete. So I thought of putting his name here. So Fred Cohen, he stated that in his words, a computer virus is a program that has a destructive nature and it's able to affect other computer programs by modifying them in such a way as to include a copy of itself. So everyone were wondering what is the full form of virus. So virus is vital information resource under SIES. So the name implies the nature of virus. So here types of viruses and virus and how they infect. So here there are lots of viruses. Polymorphic virus. So this polymorphic virus can change its characteristics and it can adopt any file or any directory, and it will infect a computer. Stealth viruses and fast and slow infectors, they both are pretty same. Stealth viruses actively try to hide themselves from an antivirus and system software. But whereas this fast and slow virus infect a computer, first they infect a computer in a particular way and they will try to avoid being detected by antivirus softwares. But stealth viruses, they do not attack first. They will try to hide themselves, and after a long time, when antivirus neglects that virus, then it will start its malicious functions. So sparse infectors. Sparse infectors, they don't infect very often, and once they infect, it will be hard for them to control. Armored viruses. Armored viruses are programmed to make eradication difficult. So actually, these viruses are implanted into one's computer to make their system crash, and this virus is very hard to destruct. So types of viruses and how they affect. Multi-partiate viruses. So here there is cavity or space filler viruses. What this cavity virus attempts to this virus attempts to maintain a constant file size while infecting a computer in order to try to avoid detection. So what it means was, so when it will try to it will try to maintain constant file size. So when a file size increases dramatically, what an antivirus do is it will detect why it's the file size is getting very high. So what this cavity viruses they'll do is they'll try to maintain a constant file size in order to not being detected by a particular antivirus software. And tunneling viruses try to go under the antivirus software by infecting. Camouflage viruses attempt to appear as a beginning program. So this virus droppers are a special category of program that these are not actual virus, but these are the containers of the virus. Let me discuss them in upcoming slides. So types of viruses and where they infect. So these types of viruses, the first type is file infected viruses. File infected viruses infect program files. These viruses normally infect executable code such as .com and exe files. For example, Jerusalem and Cascade are the types of viruses that can that can infect file. Boot sector viruses they can infect the system area of a disk, that is boot record on floppy disks and hard disks. All floppy disks are hard disks, including disks that contain a data. These floppy disks contain a small program in the boot record that is run when the computer starts up. So boot sector viruses attach themselves to this part of the disk and activate when the user attempts to start up from the infected disk. Examples will be Form, Deskeller, and Stone, Michel and Joe, etc. So macroviruses, how these macroviruses will infect. So these types of viruses infect data files. So I'm gonna tell you with an example here. So actually they'll say that a macro virus can be written that not only it will infect the data files, and it can infect other files from that particular file as well. So macro viruses can infect Microsoft Word, and then from the Word alone it can jump to Excel, and it can jump to PowerPoint, and it can access all those files. So there are newer technologies for this macroviruses, and we must be very careful with these viruses. W9, 7M, Melissa, and WM, Nice Day, and these are all the examples. Companion viruses. What these companion viruses will do is, this is a special type of virus that add files that run first on the disk. So it'll attack from the files that runs first on the disk. Cluster viruses, it's a special type that infects through directory. Batch file viruses, these use text batch files to infect. Source code viruses, these add code to actual program code. Both these source file viruses and Visual Basic worms, they are same. They add code to the actual program code, and so through that they can infect. So let me discuss about a virus dropper in a clear way. So let's suppose you have unknowingly you have clicked some link in Google, and now your laptop is showing some pop-up messages, and it's behaving weirdly. So virus dropper may be a cause for that. What will this virus dropper do? What it will do is, it will be a container of the virus. So it will be uploaded with the code, or it will be in the Google. And when you download that particular file or something, it will come with that particular file, and it will drop that particular virus which it has into that particular laptops. So yeah, it contains programs that places viruses on the system. So, but these themselves, they are not a virus, but it's a special form of Trojan horse. So these are the examples of computer viruses: Jerusalem, Cascade, Stone, NYV, Melissa, I Love You, CIH, COPA. These are the harmful viruses. So the phases of a virus. So there will be two phases. One is reproductive phase. In this reproductive phase, let me take an example of a Word file which is infected. So in that particular Word file, it will try to make copies of that Word file. So like that, it will reproduce itself, and it will be then again after getting a certain amount of strength to them, then they'll attack on the computer. As virus reproduces, it does it with usually without the permission or acknowledgement of the computer user. In general, these in general terms, they have an infection phase where they reproduce widely, and the second phase is the attack phase. So this is where they do whatever damage that they are programmed to do. So as I've discussed large number of virus types, I'm going to next slide. So this is about the symptoms of computers attacked by virus. So the first symptom is computer programs take longer to load than normal. The computer's hardware drive constantly runs out of free space. Uh, what about this first step? When you open a particular program like MS Teams or anything, it will take lot of time than normal. So then you can say your computer is under attack. So the computer's hard drive constantly runs out of free space as viruses multiply themselves as copies. So the hardware's drive will be reduced. The floppy disk drive or the hard drive runs when you are not using it. So you can hear some noises from internal hardware. That might be a cause for virus. New files keep on appearing on the system, and you don't know where they came from. So some strange sounds or beeping noises from the computer's keyboard, from the computer or keyboard, or from the monitor. Some buzzing sounds. So those are all the uh, virus types. I mean, that can say that your laptop is under an attack, virus attack. So the sixth step is strange graphics are displayed in your computer's monitor. Files have strange names you didn't recognize, that you have not created them. You are unable to access the hard drive when booting from the floppy drive. Uh, Program size keeps changing, and conventional memory is less than it is used to be, and you can't explain why. These programs act erratically. So, safe computing practices. So, in order to reduce virus attacks, we have to update antivirus software regularly, and you have to update system updates in your computer in order to keep up your firewall. The safe boot disk and the hard disk boot must be done frequently in order to reduce all those remove all those viruses which have unknowingly in your computer. And you have to use RTF and but not DOC, and consider other alternative software when your anti software goes down. Don't open any attachments from anyone, and turn off the preview. Disable scripting and show extensions, and you have to protect copies. Don't ever boot devices from unknown devices. It might look fun, but once you are under attack, then it will be very hard for you to come up with a solution. So backup. So let me discuss backup separately. Yeah, backup. Yeah. So let me discuss backup clearly. So what is backup? Why do you need backup? So let me take a scenario. So you have a system, and you have some very important files in your system related to company or other things. So when you are vulnerable, when your firewall is vulnerable, some attacker will come and he'll penetrate into your system, and he'll encrypt all your data, and he'll charge you some bucks, some like 1 lakh or 2 lakhs. It's based on your privacy or your wanting of your data. So he'll be charging you. So you're not sure that he's going to give the decryption key to your encrypted files. So So my scenario is, so what I'm saying is, it's always great to have a backup of your computer. See, so once damage is done, once the damage is done to files on your computer, no matter what the cause is, it's often too late. A comprehensive backup strategy is a vital, very important component in your computer security. So, and you don't forget to test the restore routines. Okay, and develop a backup strategy based on how much work you are willing to do to re-enter information. Keep at least one backup copy of site. As there are cloud storages, there are Google cloud storages, Amazon cloud storages, Samsung cloud storages. You can save all your important files in that particular directories or that particular servers, so that you can extract them whenever you want, even though you're under an attack or like that. I from my knowledge, each and every company is having a backup plan. They have separate work and jobs for these backup plans. So as data is more secured nowadays, everyone needs this backup plan. So I'm requesting you all, so please have a backup plan for your computer. So firewall is an interesting concept. So what this firewall will do? So when a user tries to come into a system without without any authorized way, so what this firewall will do is, it will stop that particular links, and it will ask for the authorization. When the attacker cannot give any authorization, it will stop that particular attack. So it's very important to have firewalls. So let me discuss in detail. If a firewall is a part of a computer system or network that is designed to block unauthorized access while permitting authorized communications. It is a device or a set of devices which is configured to permit or deny computer applications based on a set of rules or other criteria. So if actually for firewall there will be some rules, so that particular IP address would have been noted previously, then like that some rules will be there. If that doesn't, if the unauthorized access doesn't meet this criteria of security, then it will automatically blocks that particular attack. So what firewalls? Firewalls are frequently used to prevent unauthorized internet users from accessing private networks connected to the internet, especially intranets. So what intranets will do is it will so using intranets is a very good idea. Actually, what intranets will do is it will minimize the access to all the websites for the user, so he cannot find any other malicious code from internet. All messages entering or leaving in the intranet pass through this firewall, where this firewall examines the message and the blocks those do that and those blocks do not meet the specified criteria, security criteria, they will be thrown out. So my conclusion is about this is, so RSA is very important nowadays. It's a very encryption and decryption mechanism to follow. Using large values of P and Q, you can able to maintain those your data very encrypted. So coming about these viruses, I'm requesting everyone to keep up their antivirus softwares and regularly update your systems, so that virus cannot enter. So that virus cannot enter into your into your computer or any attacks. So please, I'm requesting you. And so this is about it. And thank you so much for your patience and for listening this lecture given by me. And thank you.